wake up in a place that smells like ale, disappointment, and the vague but undeniable scent of singed hair? Because I do. Frequently. It's called the hollow oak, and it is the very definition of functional but regrettable. I sat up in my cot, stretched, and immediately cracked my head against the ceiling beam. Again. I am 6'2", with a magnificent yellow-orange scaled hide, muscular but lean. And yet somehow I keep forgetting that my room was built for people whose height stops at respectable human, and not intimidating dragon lizard who speaks with far too much sarcasm. I groaned, rubbing my head, then turned to the small cracked mirror across the room. My red eyes gleamed back at me. My teeth, sharp and pristine, practically shone in the dim candlelight. A handsome devil. Or rather, a handsome draconic devil. I gave myself a winning grin. "Ah, Bozwick," I said to my reflection, "today is the day your life comes together." I then tripped over an empty tankard, stubbed my toe, and swore loudly. The gods have a cruel sense of humor. I staggered down to the common room, where the morning regulars were already in full form. A dwarf was asleep at the bar, his beard soaking in a puddle of something, unclear if ale or tears. A half-orc sat in the corner, glaring at his drink like it had personally insulted him. And behind the bar, wiping a tankard with the weariness of someone who had lost all hope in humanity, stood Talia. Talia. The ever-efficient, ever-suffering barmaid. Human, early 30s, permanently unimpressed. If exhaustion were a person, it would look like her. She didn't even look up as I approached.
"You owe 3 nights' rent."
Talia," I said, flashing a sharp-toothed grin. "How delightful it is to hear your dulcet debt-collecting tones first thing in the morning." Still, no reaction. "I was hoping for a good morning, Bozwick. Your scales look positively radiant today. But alas, kindness is a dying art." She sighed, rubbing her temples.
"Bozwick, your scales look positively radiant today. You still owe me 3 nights' rent."
Aha, you do care. She gave me a look that suggested she was strongly considering whether my blood could be used as an acceptable replacement for syrup. "Fear not," I continued. "Tonight I shall perform, and the people of Grymmwood Peaks shall shower me with coin. And when they do, my dear Talia, you shall have your rent, and I shall have my breakfast."
"You still have to pay for breakfast."
I gasped, clutching my chest as if struck by a mortal wound. "Is there no end to your cruelty?"
"Do you want breakfast or not?"
I grumbled, flipping a copper onto the counter. "Fine, but just so you know, this is a direct attack on the arts." She just handed me a bowl of whatever the hollow oak had decided to call stew today. I stirred it. Something within it moved independently. I decided I wasn't hungry. Night fell, and the tavern filled up. Travelers, locals, and one elf, who looked like he deeply regretted whatever life choice had brought him here. I stood upon my usual stage, a single wooden plank balanced across 2 barrels, and raised my arms dramatically. Friends, peasants, well-dressed bandits, pretending to be merchants. Tonight, I bring you a tale of love, betrayal, and extremely poor financial decisions. I launched into my performance, a gripping tale of a noble knight who accidentally bet his horse in a game of dice, lost, then attempted to buy it back using a sack of potatoes and a heartfelt apology. I played every role. The knight, arrogant but deeply stupid. The dice-cheating rogue, smug, had a limp for no reason. And the horse, angry, bitter, very opinionated. The audience loved it. People laughed, they gasped, they threw coins and only one piece of stale bread, which I took as a compliment. By the time I finished, the crowd was roaring with approval. I bowed, scooped up my hard-earned coin, and sauntered back to the bar. "Talia, my dear, consider your rent paid." She counted my modest earnings.
"You are still short."
"Yes, well, I consider this more of a layaway situation." She arched a brow.
"Are you about to ask me for something?"
I leaned in conspiratorially. "I need information."
"About?"
I took a deep breath. "My chicken." Talia blinked. Then, in the flattest voice imaginable, said,
"You mean Bach?"
I gasped. "You know of him?"
"You talk about him constantly."
"Yes, but have you seen him?" She tapped a finger on the counter.
Maybe. What's it worth to you?
I narrowed my eyes. A private performance. Just for you. A tale so grand, so riveting, that it will redefine entertainment as we know it.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Talia, I said, already planning my next act. You wound me. I am always good. Tomorrow I would find Bach. Tonight I would perform again. And maybe, just maybe, I would finally get a free breakfast. Probably not. But a dragonborn can dream. Morning broke over Grymmwood Peaks in the usual way. Cold, damp, and slightly judgmental. The city, nestled between the Keth Forest and the desolate peaks, had a certain rustic charm. If you were the sort who found charm in perpetual fog, questionable alleyways, and a distinct overpopulation of goats. I, however, was a dragonborn of refined tastes, so naturally I found it disgusting. I yawned, stretched my magnificent frame, and descended into the Hollow Oak's common room, where Talia was already wiping down the bar with the air of someone whose dreams had been crushed years ago. She barely glanced up as I approached.
You look terrible.
But only moderately terrible, which means I am improving, I said, leaning dramatically against the counter. Now tell me, where last did you see my beloved Bokk? She sighed.
Some kid ran through here yesterday screaming about a deranged, oversized chicken terrorizing the marketplace.
My heart soared. He lives! Talia gave me a long, weary look.
Bozwick, let me just ask, on behalf of everyone, why do you even have a chicken?
Because, my dear Talia, Bokk is not just any chicken. He is an artist. She stared at me.
He's a chicken.
A chicken of culture, I insisted. His presence elevates my performances. His mere clucks provide a subtle yet profound commentary on the nature of existence. She rubbed her temples.
He pecked a drunk man unconscious last time he was here.
Performance art is often misunderstood. Talia exhaled slowly, as though debating whether it was worth her energy to continue this conversation. Then she just waved vaguely toward the door.
Market Square, go!
The marketplace of Grymmwood Peaks was a lively place. If your definition of lively included aggressive haggling, the occasional fist fight over turnips, and at least one shady figure selling authentic dragon eggs that suspiciously looked like painted cabbages. I made my way through the crowd, scanning for any sign of my feathered companion. Then I heard it. A scream. Followed by,
"Get this damn thing off me!"
I turned just in time to see a burly merchant running for his life, arms flailing, as a very familiar, very angry chicken clung to his back, pecking at his head like it had just uncovered a personal vendetta against baldness. "Bach!" I shouted, pushing through the crowd. Bach turned his beady little eyes toward me, assessing, judging. Then, with a majestic, some might say terrifying leap, he abandoned his victim and launched himself toward me. I caught him in my arms, twirling dramatically. "Reunited at last, my dearest friend." The merchant, now free of his paltry assailant, whirled on me.
"Is this your chicken?"
"Ah," I said, glancing between him and Bokk, who was now preening like a smug bastard. "Define yours in the philosophical sense." The merchant pointed an accusing finger.
"That thing tried to steal my bread."
Bokk let out a defiant balk, as if to say, "And I'd do it again, you turnip-hoarding swine." "Sir," I said solemnly, "is it theft? Or merely a critique of our flawed economic system?"
"Obviously it's theft."
I sighed. "Oh, very well. What is the price of this stolen bread?"
2 copper pieces.
I nodded, turned, then immediately ran in the opposite direction.
"Get back here, you scaled-faced thief!"
We bolted through the market, dodging carts, barrels, and an elderly woman who tried to beat me with a broom for reasons I am still unclear on. Bokk, to his credit, kept up like a trained warhorse.
Bozwick, you poor excuse for a chicken-handling bard.
I turned just in time to see Talia standing outside the Hollow Oak, arms crossed. Talia," I said, gasping for breath. "It seems fate has once again thrown me into perilous circumstances beyond my control."
Uh-huh.
She said, unimpressed. "Do you still have that back door unlocked?" She sighed and stepped aside. I dived through the entrance. Bokk clutched to my chest like a stolen relic and landed spectacularly on my feet, which is a complete lie. I tripped over a chair and landed flat on my face. Talia shut the door just as the merchant reached it, pounding on the wood.
"That thief owes me 2 copper pieces."
Talia looked down at me, then up at the door.
He's broke. Come back later.
There was a frustrated grunt, and then silence. I rolled onto my back, panting. Talia, you are a saint. She gave me a long look.
You are paying rent tonight.
Yes, yes, I waved a hand. But first, dinner for my dear Bokk. He has survived great hardship. Bokk balked triumphantly. Talia stared at him.
If he causes one more problem...
He won't. He is a gentleman. As if on cue, Bokk jumped onto the counter and immediately knocked over a full tankard of ale. Talia closed her eyes. I prepared for death. Instead, she just muttered,
I need a raise.
I grinned. And I need an audience. For tonight, I tell the story of the brave and noble chicken who outwitted the market fiend. Bokk flapped his wings proudly. Talia groaned. And thus, my artistic masterpiece was born. That night, as the flickering lanterns cast their warm, unreliable glow across the Hollow Oak's common room, I took my place at the center of the tavern floor. The audience, a finely curated collection of drunks, gamblers, and at least one man who seemed to be asleep with his eyes open, waited with bated breath. Bokk perched on the bar behind me, puffed up with importance, surveying the crowd like a noble king of poultry. He had not earned this status. He had seized it. I took a deep breath, stretched out my arms, and began. Friends, travelers, unfortunate souls who cannot afford better entertainment, gather close. Tonight I tell a tale most grand, a story of betrayal, of daring, of one noble beast's struggle against tyranny. The drunks blinked at me. The gamblers looked vaguely interested. The open-eyed sleeper continued to haunt my soul. Talia, polishing a mug with the expression of a woman who had long given up on happiness, sighed.
Oh, gods, here we go.
I swept an arm toward Bach. This is the tale of a humble creature, a hero among fowl, nay, among men, who stared into the abyss of starvation and declared, "Not I!" Bach let out a perfectly timed balk. The audience gasped. Oh, now they were paying attention. I launched into the saga of Bach's harrowing survival in the treacherous wilds of the marketplace, embellishing only slightly, which is to say heavily. I described his brave escape from the merchant's clutches. I detailed his battle against overwhelming odds. I reenacted, with great physical prowess, the part where he leapt onto my chest, his triumphant reunion with his dearest companion. By the time I reached the climax, where Bach allegedly defended my honor against a horde of bread-hoarding marauders, the crowd was enthralled. Someone wiped away a tear. The open-eyed sleeper finally blinked, and then, at the perfect dramatic pause, Bach flapped his wings, puffed out his chest, and let out a cry so mighty, so profound, that he promptly knocked over another full tankard of ale. Talia groaned.
Unbelievable.
The gamblers burst into applause. The drunks cheered. One man threw a coin at me. Not to me, at me. I dodged it with the agility of a true performer, scooping it up with a flourish. A legend was born. As the night wore on and the crowd slowly trickled out, I leaned back in my chair, stretching my legs over the table like a man who had conquered both stage and destiny. Talia wiped down the counter with a look of pure skepticism.
So what's the plan now? Bozwick the Bard of Poultry?
I steepled my fingers, gazing at Bach, who was currently pecking at the remains of someone's breadcrumbs. Bach and I must prepare for our next great work, I mused. Tonight was but Act 1 in the legend of the feathered warrior. Talia squinted at me.
You're just going to keep making up stories about your chicken, aren't you?
I gasped. Making up? Talia, please. I am but a humble messenger of truth. Bach, as if sensing the moment, stole a piece of sausage off someone's abandoned plate. I coughed. Mostly truth. She shook her head.
You're an idiot.
And yet, I said, waving my coin pouch, an employed idiot. Talia sighed.
You still owe me rent.
I held up a finger. Ah, but consider. My presence draws customers. I am a cultural asset, an investment, if you will. Talia crossed her arms. I quickly counted my coins. Fine, I'll pay, but only if Bach gets a free meal. She narrowed her eyes at the chicken, who was now attempting to stare down a bar cat in what could only be described as a silent declaration of war.
Fine, but only because I don't want that thing attacking customers for food again.
I beamed, tossing Bach a chunk of bread. See, my dear friend, our legend grows. One step closer to immortality. Bach pecked at the bread. I turned to Talia. Speaking of immortality, any rumors of grand tales in need of a performer? A noble in search of a court jester? Perhaps a festival in need of theatrical excellence? She sighed and wiped down the counter again.
There is a noble hiring entertainment tomorrow night for some fancy party.
I grinned. Bach balked, and thus destiny called once more. The following evening, Bach and I found ourselves standing before the grand double doors of Lord Cornelius Evercrest's lavish manor, which, in my expert opinion, was about one overly extravagant statue away from collapsing under the weight of its own self-importance. A doorman in a powdered wig gave me a once-over, clearly questioning everything about my existence.
You are the entertainment?
He asked, his voice thick with disbelief. I straightened my modest yet refined bardic attire, and flashed him my most winning smile. Indeed, Bozwick the Bard, master of theatrical enchantment, teller of grand tales, and deliverer of unparalleled wit. The doorman remained unimpressed. His gaze drifted downward to Bach, who was glaring at him like he was personally responsible for every grain shortage in history.
And this?
My artistic partner, I declared, draping an arm around Bach. Bach, the philosopher. His wisdom is beyond mortal comprehension. Bach let out a balk and promptly pecked my boot. The doorman sighed the sigh of a man who is very underpaid.
Just get inside, and don't cause a scene.
I dramatically placed a hand on my chest. Sir, I am the scene. He groaned and waved me in. Lord Evercrest's banquet hall was a monument to bad financial decisions. Gilded chandeliers, embroidered tapestries, gold-rimmed goblets. I was fairly certain even the chair legs had tiny, jeweled inlays. Because why not make something completely unnecessary even more impractical? The audience was exactly what I expected. Nobles sipping their wine, too refined to show excitement, yet desperately craving entertainment. I took my place in the center of the hall, striking a pose. My lords and ladies, gather close. Tonight, I bring you a story of love, of tragedy, of one noble warrior lost in a cruel and unfeeling world. A dramatic pause. The legend of Bach the Betrayed. The nobles exchanged glances. Lord Evercrest coughed.
Is this about a chicken?
I raised a finger. Not just a chicken. A visionary, a warrior poet, a martyr who defied the tyrannical rule of the grain merchants. I launched into my masterpiece. An epic tale of betrayal, survival, and redemption, with Bach as the star. The nobles stared in stunned silence. Bach, sensing his moment, spread his wings and let out a mighty balk. One noble gasped. Another fainted. Lord Evercrest rubbed his temples.
Gods above, what am I paying you for?
Art, I replied solemnly. Just as I was about to begin my grand finale, an interpretive reenactment of Bach's triumphant return, someone very familiar strolled into the banquet hall. A human male dressed in fine traveling leathers, his dark brown wavy hair with an effortless charm that could probably seduce a brick wall. Ven. Yes, that Ven. The bard from Solister. The bard who actually played music and sang songs. The bard who had a reputation for real talent as well as moonlighting as a grungy dungeon raider. He took one look at me, standing dramatically with a chicken in a noble's banquet hall, and smirked.
Oh, my dear Boswick, I should have known this was your doing.
I placed a hand over my heart. Ven! My rival, my comrade, my inspiration. Have you come to witness my artistic genius?
I was actually hired to perform tonight. Real music, though, not chicken-related storytelling.
Bach let out an offended squawk. Ven raised an eyebrow.
Oh, I do apologize. I meant historical reenactments.
Lord Evercrest cleared his throat, rubbing his temples.
Wait, you were hired too? Why am I paying two bards?
I huffed. Because one bard alone is not enough to contain the sheer magnitude of this event. Ven crossed his arms.
Or because you accidentally hired this idiot.
Evercrest sighed.
Definitely the second one.
Despite Evercrest's apparent regret in life, my performance ended on a high note. The nobles, while confused, were thoroughly entertained. Ven played his usual actual music, and even I had to admit he was annoyingly talented. As the night wound down, Ven approached me, grinning.
So, What's next for Bozwick the Bard?
I stroked my chin. Well, my friend, my journey is ever ongoing. But for now, Bach and I shall return to the Hollow Oak and bask in the glory of our well-earned wages. Ven chuckled.
Well, if you ever decide to take up actual bard work, let me know.
I gasped. Ven, please. I am an actor, a performer, a thespian.
You're a chicken enthusiast who got lucky.
He countered. Details. With that, we parted ways. Back at the Hollow Oak, I dropped a few coins on the counter in front of Talia, who raised an eyebrow.
So you actually got paid?
I nodded.
And you didn't get arrested?
I puffed out my chest. Not this time. She smirked, shaking her head.
Well, in that case, drinks are on me.
Bach balked in approval, and thus the legend of Bozwick and Bach continued. One ridiculous performance at a time.